Hi, this is Lara at Elliott Wave Gold with your daily analysis for Tuesday 14th of October, recording the video a bit later than usual, 7:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I was expecting more upward movement to a target at 1243 to 1245. We got a little bit of upward movement, but price fell $4.64 short of that target before turning downwards. I do expect now that a B wave or possibly an X wave has arrived. It's incomplete. I expect a little bit more downward movement to 1222. It is possible though that downward movement could move lower, and it is possible it could make a new low, but that's unlikely. Let's have a look at the charts. At the daily chart level, I am still expecting that primary wave 4 was over here, and it's still most likely that primary wave 5 is incomplete, that within primary 5 we have only intermediate wave 1, and that this upward movement is intermediate wave 2. There are still several structural possibilities for intermediate wave 2. It's most likely at its end to reach up to the 0.618 Fibonacci ratio of intermediate wave 1 at 1280.8, and it can't move beyond the start of 1 above 1345.22. It shouldn't get anywhere near that point. If it gets up that high, it should find strong resistance at the BD trend line of the primary 4 triangle. Draw this blue channel on the daily chart and copy it over carefully every day to hourly charts, from this low here to this low, and then place a parallel copy on this high. Downward movement might find some support at that upper trend line on the hourly chart. Intermediate wave 2 should last another couple of weeks, if not longer, maybe another 3 weeks or so. It should be nicely in proportion to intermediate wave 1. It's not over here, it's most likely to continue higher. This would be too shallow and too brief for an intermediate degree correction. Let's have a look at the most likely structure at this stage, and we will have to have flexibility with the analysis while we're in a correction, because there are still several structural possibilities that the second wave can take. Okay, let's look at the most likely, where the low down here is this point down here. The most likely at this stage is a double zigzag, or possibly a bit less likely a double combination, because from this low to this high, when I look at all possible structures and ways of labelling this, a 535 zigzag ending here has the best fit. There's also a ratio between A and C. There's a triangle here in this B wave position. I expect it's supported by MACD hovering at the 0 line while it unfolded. And one of the triangle subwaves is a double zigzag. It all fits perfectly with the E wave falling short of the AC trend line. This upward movement here for minute wave A is also supported by MACD. We have the strongest upward momentum in the third wave, but there's no ratio between 1, 3 and 5 at minuet degree. That's the only problem with this wave count, but there are no problems in terms of subdivisions. So if we do have a 535 zigzag complete up here, then this movement to follow it is an X wave. If minor wave W is a zigzag, then intermediate wave 2 is most likely to be a double zigzag. It could also be a double combination. It depends on the depth of the X wave, and if I've got this piece of analysis correct, then the X wave may turn out to be quite shallow. Double zigzags and double combinations are really different structures. Double zigzags exist, well, the second zigzag in a double exists to deepen the correction when the first zigzag does not move price deep enough. And for this minor wave W falling short of the 0.382 Fibonacci ratio of intermediate wave 1, that's exactly what it's done. It's fallen well short of where you'd expect intermediate wave 2 to be. So intermediate wave 2 could be unfolding as a double zigzag, requiring a second zigzag to deepen the correction. Because that's the purpose of double zigzags, they usually have shallow X waves. So at 1222, minute C would reach 1.618, the length of minute A. That will complete the expanded flat correction for minor wave X. If it does turn out to be shallow, then I'd expect minor wave Y to move well beyond the end of W, probably to take price up to the 0.618 Fibonacci ratio. But if minor wave X turns out to be quite a lot deeper than this, then intermediate 2 could be a double combination. They are quite different structures to double zigzags. combinations exist to take up time and move price sideways, and so they usually have pretty deep X waves. The X wave of a combination has no lower invalidation point. It most certainly could make a new price extreme beyond the start of minor wave W, so there is no lower invalidation point for this wave count. It's also possible that from the low up to the high we can see this as a 5-wave impulse. This is supported by MACD. The third wave does have the strongest momentum. The fourth wave is seen as a triangle supported by MACD. The only problem in terms of subdivisions for this idea is this movement here. This wave count has to see it as a 5-wave structure, and quite frankly it really does look like a 3. So for that reason this wave count has a lower probability. It too is seeing a 3-3-5 expanded flat correction in this position, but for this idea, because A subdivides as a 5, that means we would be looking at a single zigzag, and within a zigzag B can't move beyond the start of A below 1183.22. When B is done, we'd expect a 5 up for C, probably to take price up to the 0.618 Fibonacci ratio on the daily chart. So despite there being a lower probability for this idea, it expects exactly the same movement next. It's just the structure of the next upward movement. Is it going to be a 3 or a 5? But I'd expect it to end about the same place. This wave count's quite different, but it has the lowest probability. All the subdivisions fit perfectly except for this piece of movement here. This idea follows directly on from my previous analysis, and it was looking all pretty good up to here, but now if we have a 5-3-5 zigzag for the second zigzag and the double complete here, then this mini wet wave C does not fit very well at all as an ending expanding diagonal. The fifth wave is too short. The fifth wave for the expanding diagonal should be longer than the third, and definitely should be longer than the first. The fact that it isn't significantly reduces the probability of this wave count. I think it has a really low probability. So what all that means is it's pretty unlikely that we're going to see a deep B wave. I think it's most likely to be shallow, most likely to end about 1222. It's probably going to find support at the upper edge of this blue channel, so keep copying this over to the hourly chart. This trend line, if it continues to hold, could show us where the B or X wave ends. That's all for me today with your gold analysis, and I hope that all our members are having an awesome day.